Welcome back to America on the Road with Jack Nerad back with you. And we're so glad you're with us. We really do appreciate you listening to America on the Road. We know you have a lot of things that you could be listening to, so we're honored the fact that you're listening to us. And it is road test time. Well, I was driving a vehicle that could be the most lavish vehicle I have ever driven. Certainly right up there. I mean, and I've driven some Bentleys in my time and Rolls Royces, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking about the Grand Wagoneer. I guess you could call it the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. I'm not quite sure whether they're precisely calling it Jeep or not these days. I mean, they didn't initially call it a Jeep, but it brings back the Grand Wagoneer nomenclature that Jeep had used way back in the 60s. I think it started in 63 or something like that. Jeep hasn't had a great history with three-row SUVs, but this is a massive one, and I think it's a great one. Like I say, very, very lavish, with plenty of power. But what wows people, and I had some house guests here, some friends of friends and friends of my daughter and stuff like that visiting through the past weekend, and they were just blown away by the interior of this vehicle. It's just, so lush, very high quality leathers, quilted, perforated, all kinds of things. Screens everywhere. It's just amazing. The second row seats are as good as the front row seats in terms of adjustability and the way they look, all of that kind of stuff. It's built on a truck chassis, basically on the Ram 1500 truck chassis. And you could say, well, why put it on a truck? But at the same time, that's one of the best riding vehicles I've ever driven anyway. So not so bad. It uses, in the configuration we had, which was the very up-level version of the Grand Wagoneer, air suspension. I think all of the Grand Wagoneers actually have air suspension. So it can be raised and lowered on its suspension, and it just rides really, really well. You do experience the fact that it is based on a truck in the fact that it's gigantic. I had the long wheelbase version of this thing, and it's, kind of like parking a super tanker or something like that. But in terms of being luxury equipped, it certainly got that. It's powered by a 510 horsepower twin turbo 3-liter inline six, their Hurricane 6. And, I'm kind of surprised, maybe even Stellantis is surprised that this vehicle doesn't get that much better fuel economy than the old 6.4-liter V8, the old Hemi V8. It really doesn't. It isn't that much more fuel efficient. I mean, it's a great engine. It seems very smooth and all of that kind of stuff like that. And, this thing is actually pretty quick, 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. It kind of blows you away for something. Heaven knows what this thing weighs. I imagine it's something like 5,000 or 6,000 pounds. It's up there. Your reaction, Chris?
That is a lot of acceleration for such a hefty vehicle, and the types of people that are driving this aren't really the type of people who expect that kind of performance. But I think I go back to the complexity with this vehicle. It worries me, the number of different systems and things that are in this thing, despite it being as nice as it is.
Yeah. Well, that worries me too. I guess if you're paying $120,000 for a vehicle, maybe you're not so worried about that because you have enough money to get it fixed and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that there's been any problems that we've noted.
No.
With it. The L version has a ton of cargo space. It has 44 cubic feet behind the third row. So that's a massive amount of vehicle. I mean, in terms of picking people up at the airport, absolutely. I could see these going into chauffeur service very, very easily. 89 cubic feet with the rear seats folded, and there's just multiple screens everywhere. You can have a passenger screen if you want. You can have two rear screens, big screen up front, 12-inch center touch screen. The HVAC controls, the heating and air conditioning controls, are on a different touch screen. So it has all the bells and whistles from a tech point of view, and a ton of driver assistance features too. The only thing it won't do is drive itself. And maybe my sense is a lot of people don't care that much about having level 3 or level 2 plus, I guess is what we're looking at with the Super Cruise and Blue Cruise. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, my wife is one of those people. The few Cadillacs and Fords that I've tested with either Super Cruise or Blue Cruise, she's been very upset that I decided to test it while she was in the vehicle with me. Her Volvo had a lane centering system that functioned. You had to keep your hands on the wheel, but pretty robust system that she never used. So, I think a lot of people, even if they don't necessarily consider themselves enthusiasts, do enjoy having full control of the vehicle.
Yeah, agreed. And maybe they don't trust having the vehicle having full control of
That's a good
itself
point.
too.
Yeah.
I mean, this, has so many bells and whistles. It's absolutely a good competitor for the Cadillac Escalade. I think there's a new Lincoln Navigator like imminent, and we will see what that is all about. But this kind of takes luxury to the next level here. And while 100,000 plus seems like a ton of money, and it is a ton of money. I mean, I bought houses for a lot less. It still seems like, in a lot of ways, kind of a bargain from the amount of just great stuff that this thing offers.
Yeah, I mean, if you bought a comparable Mercedes GLS or BMW X7, I think you'd be paying at least that, if not much more than that, for a vehicle that probably doesn't have the same amount of gear.
Yeah, and certainly not the same amount of space.
Sure.
That's absolutely sure. Well, when we come back, we will have an interview with our friend Kevin Butt. He is the Regional Environmental Sustainability Director at Toyota North America. So we'll be talking with him about what Toyota is doing on the sustainability front. So stay with us for that. Interesting stuff from him, and we'll be right back right here on America on the Road.